President al-Assad stressed to the Anglican Church delegation that the Syrian society will never accept the wahabi and takfiri mentality, which doesn't threaten Syria only, but the region's countries as well. A new batch of humanitarian and relief aid arrived at Damascus International Airport from Russia, and Moscow's expressed its relief concerning the arrival of the aid to al-Ghezlaniye area. Syrian Arab army units achieve progress on several axes and eliminate tens of terrorists in Homs, Idlib and al-Hasaka. Good afternoon. Welcome to our news bulletin. I'm Dania Nizam. The media office at the presidency dismissed what the Russian Interfax news agency has reported and ascribed to President Bashar al-Assad as inaccurate, and stressed that the president did not give an interview to the agency. President Bashar al-Assad's stress during a meeting with the delegation of the Anglican Church headed by Amjad Biblawi, mission coordinator for the Middle East at Presbyterian Church in the USA, that the Syrian society that has been known for its amity and tolerance for centuries will never accept the wahabi and takfiri mentality, adding that this dangerous mentality does not only threaten Syria but also all of the region's countries. President al-Assad said that one of the main problems regarding the Western and the US approach in dealing with the region's issues is that most of their leaders are far from comprehending the reality and nature of the region and the interests of its people. President al-Assad stressed that the majority of the Western leaders are working to achieve their narrow interests, which are far from the interests of their peoples and countries. For their part, members of the delegation, comprising clergymen from USA, Sweden, Switzerland, Lebanon and Syria, expressed their solidarity with Syria and rejection of any foreign intervention in the Syrian affairs, hoping that peace and security will prevail again in this country, which represents a model for cultural and religious variety. People's Assembly Speaker Mohammed Jihad al-Laham received the Russian Duma Council delegation, the Imperial Orthodox Palestinian Society and representatives of the Russian organizations. During the meeting, Dr. Laham stressed that Geneva II priorities should be fighting terrorism, pointing out that the Syrian people and government believe in the political and peaceful solution without imposing conditions on the Syrian people. On their part, the Russian delegation members asserted that the Russian people and the Duma Council support the Syrian people in facing terrorism. The delegation pointed out that the Russian parliament participate in all the international forums to support Syria and its people, hailing the Syrian Arab army's sacrifices in defending the homeland. The Russian delegation had visited the military hospital of Yusuf al-Adma to check on the conditions of the wounded from the army soldiers. The delegation's visit will last for several days, during which meetings will be held with religious and official figures, in addition to carrying out several activities to support those who were affected by the terrorist acts. During his meeting with the Bulgarian delegation, Speaker Laham emphasized the need for a real international will to fight terrorism and to expose its financiers and supporters led by Saudi Arabia. Laham pointed out that terrorism, which is striking Syria, is financed by the leaders of Saudi Arabia, where extremism and terrorism are manufactured and exported to the world. For his part, head of the delegation, Strahil Angilov, a Bulgarian member of parliament, asserted the need to tighten relations with the Syrian parliament and the necessity of exchanging information about the reality of what's happening in Syria. A new batch of humanitarian and relief aid to the Syrian people has arrived this morning at Damascus International Airport. The aid, which includes foodstuffs and milk for children, was collected by the Imperial Orthodox Palestinian Society in Russia. The batches of humanitarian and relief aid are to help the Syrian people face the crisis they are exposed to due to the terrorist attacks and the unfair economic sanctions imposed upon them. Since the beginning of the crisis in Syria, the Russian people and government delivered several batches of humanitarian aid, the last of which arrived last month on 2 Russian planes with 44 tons of aid on board to Latakia airport. A new batch of humanitarian assistance, including food, blankets and clothes, reached the displaced people and those who were affected by the terrorist armed groups in the town of al-Ghezlaniye in Damascus Countryside. The Syrian Arab Red Crescent delivered the assistance loaded in 30 trucks to the town's council in cooperation with the UN organizations to be distributed among the displaced and those who were affected. Red Crescent Coordinator of Response to Operations said that the work continued in cooperation with the concerned parties in order to alleviate the suffering of the people and to meet the needs of those who were affected in all areas. Efforts exerted by the Palestinian National Popular Initiative have been crowned with success as the first batch of food supplies have entered al-Yarmouk camp, although the trucks that were carrying these supplies did not reach the point agreed upon, which made the Palestinian Popular Committees and residents of al-Yarmouk camp, who defied the terrorists, deliver the food supplies on their shoulders. Russian Foreign Ministry expressed relief over the arrival of the humanitarian aid to the displaced people and affected people by the armed terrorist groups in the town of al-Ghezlaniye in Damascus Countryside. The arrival of the aid was in accordance with what has been agreed upon during the Russian-US talks in Paris on the 13th of this month. The Russian Foreign Ministry called on all sides which have influence on the armed terrorist groups in Syria to exert pressure on them to ensure the delivery of humanitarian aid, considering such pressure would provide a more suitable environment for holding the International Conference on Syria, Geneva II. Noteworthy is that the Syrian government showed openness to any effort for delivering humanitarian aid to the civilians at any point throughout the country, calling upon all the international sides to provide help in this humanitarian endeavor. Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi said that his country would continue to exert positive and constructive efforts to reach a solution acceptable by all Syrians, asserting that holding Geneva II conference as scheduled was of vital importance for the international community. In a press conference, Wang Yi further said that the political solution through dialogue was the sole and right path to solve the crisis in Syria. Members of the General Assembly of the World Association for the Rapprochement of Islamic Schools of Thought elected during their meeting Grand Mufti of Syria Ahmed Badruddin Hassoun as head of the General Assembly. This meeting was held on the sidelines of the 27th International Islamic Unity Conference, which kicked off in the Iranian capital Tehran with the participation of Syria and over 50 countries. Under the title No to Terrorism, No to Foreign Intervention, Syria is for the Syrians, and in condemnation of al-Saud's support to terrorism in Syria, the National Union of Syrian Students in Italy, in cooperation with the Syrian community and the Italian Syrian Committee and the European Front to Support Syria, staged a sit-in in front of the Saudi embassy in Rome. The participants emphasized that the steadfastness of the Syrian people and their support to their great army will uproot terrorism, which is no longer threatening the Syrians alone, but also the whole region and the world. Pope Tawadros II, Pope of Alexandria, called for prayers for peace in Syria. In a religious ceremony, Pope Tawadros said that we all pray for peace in our brotherly country, Syria, and the safety of its people. He also prayed to God that peace prevail in Egypt too. Maronite Patriarch Cardinal Mabshara Boutros al-Rahi has called for prayers so that Geneva II conference is a success. In a preach he delivered today at the Seder Church, al-Rahi said that we would go on praying for peace in Syria and the region, voicing hope that Geneva II conference would be a success. He called upon all those in Lebanon and abroad to overcome their political disputes through dialogue. Syrian Arab army eliminated large numbers of terrorists in Homs, Idlib and Damascus countrysides and foiled their attempts to infiltrate into secure places in Daraa. A military source said that a Syrian Arab army unit had thwarted an attempt by a terrorist group to infiltrate into the village of al-Ghezlaniye in Daraa countryside, killing a number of terrorists and destroying 3 of their vehicles. Another Syrian Arab army unit foiled another infiltration attempt by a number of terrorists from Jordan Street into al-Minshiye in Daraa al-Balad, killing many terrorists and injuring several others. In Homs, Syrian Arab army units killed many terrorists in the village of Daraa al-Kabira in Homs countryside and targeted their gatherings in the villages of al-Wadiye, al-Sultani, Uncle Hawa, Delbisa and the southern countryside of al-Qasir, killing many terrorists and injuring others. In Damascus countryside, a number of terrorists from the so-called Islamic Front were killed. East of Adra al-Umaliya, also a terrorist vehicle was destroyed, killing all terrorists inside, in addition to eliminating a terrorist group, destroying their weapons and ammunition near the electricity power station east of Adra al-Balad. Other Syrian Arab army units pounded the terrorist hideouts in the towns of Ndera, Hamouriye and Arbin, killing many terrorists, while other terrorist gatherings were destroyed in the farms of Alayad, Nduma and Ain Terma, with all weapons and ammunition inside. As for Idlib countryside, Syrian Arab army targeted gatherings for the armed terrorist groups near the town of al-Badriya and al-Nizal in Ariha, killing many terrorists and injuring others. The Turkish T24 website has disclosed that covering the arms shipment intended to be sent to Syria was under the supervision of elements of the Turkish intelligence and other Turkish officials in Iskenderun city. Against the backdrop of the investigation in the case of hindering the inspection of the arms shipment, Turkish General Tani has accused both the Turkish intelligence and other officials of safeguarding the criminals, exploiting their posts and violating secrecy. He also unveiled that pressure was exercised by the advisor of the Turkish Ministry of Justice on General Turnus to close once and for all the investigation. It is to be noted that an MP from the opposition said in a session held by the Turkish parliament that Erdogan's government contributed in the spread of al-Qaeda in the region and Syria in particular, turning Turkey into an opportunist state that does not recognize and respect its neighboring countries' rights. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching us. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. After the break, it's our latest business and market news with Vani. God bless you all, and dear patriotic citizens, victory is imminent.